Welcome to Answers for Life. And I'm so glad that you've joined us tonight because we have something very exciting that we're going to talk about. But first I want to just say thank you for your questions, and I invite you to write us. The address will be down on the bottom of the screen. And if you have a question of any kind, please feel free to write us. I know many times you might go to church and you hear the pastor or evangelist or someone will say something and you'll think, well, I wish I understood more about that. I don't have all the answers, but I do have all the answers when I hold the Bible, because the Bible gives us an answer. And somehow, when you write in a question, we'll find the answer for it. Might not be the answer you want, but we'll give you an answer. And I'll guarantee you it will be based on biblical principles. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we want you to join us every week. But this is going to be a 2-week discussion that we're going to have beginning tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking about the subject. And next Wednesday night, our guests will continue to talk about the same subject. So you're going to need to call some friends during the week and tell them to join us. Because we're going to be talking about two things. We're going to be talking about personalities with emotions. You know, when God made us, He created us in a trifold. And we have, first of all, we have our spirit. Then we have our body, and we have our soul. The spirit is kind of cut and dry. You're either a Christian or not a Christian. You can't be half saved. And if you've accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, repented of your sins, then you're born again, and that carnal nature is changed to a spiritual nature. But then the body. Body's pretty cut and dry. The Bible says, know ye not that your body is a temple of the Lord. Temple means house. So when I look at you, if I see you, I don't really see you. I see the house you live in. When you look here at the camera or you look into me, you don't see LaVon Young. I'm looking at you through these two windows right here. And that's the only me you see. The rest of it is my house. And I have to take care of my house. See, some people have the problem of letting the house tell them what to do. We let the house tell us what to drink, what to eat, where to go, what to participate in. Instead of us taking charge of the house, we let the house dictate to us. So we have to take care of the body. And then we come to the third part, and that's where the humanity really has its rubber hits the road. Because the soul is made up of three things: the mind, the will, and the emotions. What you know, how you feel, and what you decide. And that is what is really important in our life. We're going to be talking about emotions. Now, I don't know exactly what our guests are going to say, but I'll tell you this: if you let your emotions make your decisions, you're in for a roller coaster ride. Because sometimes you feel good, sometimes you feel bad, sometimes you feel happy, sometimes you feel sad, and sometimes we don't even know why we feel like we feel. But our emotions is a very strong force within us. But we want to get on with the program, and I'm so happy tonight that our guests, they have the Charleston Christian Counseling Associates, and they've been my guest here before, but I just wanted them to come back, and I'm going to just more or less back off and let them carry our program tonight, and they'll tell you what they're going to talk about. But I want you just with me to give a good welcome right where you are to Diane Arnold. So good to have you.
Thanks for
and Angel Weaver.
Mm-hmm.
And they do the Christian counseling. That's located right off of Sam Rittenberg Road, behind the S&S cafeteria.
Right.
And it's a Christian counseling center, and I'm so glad that they're here tonight. So I'm just going to turn it to them and let you guys take it for whatever the Lord leads you to give to us, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're glad to be back.
Yes.
We enjoyed coming last fall, and we're going to talk about a little bit of what we're going to talk about is similar to what we did last fall. We're going to talk about relationships, but we're going to frame it in a different way tonight. I'm going to spend a little bit of time explaining some aspects of relationships and some things that can go wrong in relationships, but our target tonight is how does that affect your relationship with God, and how can you grow closer to Him? Because I think if you understand the problem, then you can find some solutions. And so we're going to just describe some different categories that I think that most people will be able to see themselves in one or the other. So we're going to do that tonight, and then for next week, based on this same information, Diane is going to take it into the realm of marriage, and she's going to talk about those relationships and problems that can come up, and how can you move past some of those problems. So she's an amazing marriage counselor, so you definitely want to tune in for that. So did you want to?
No. Yeah, thank you again for having us. We love
Good to have you.
Love coming here and love the audience that you have. It's amazing. I think that just go ahead and we'll start with the attachment information. We'll chime in as we get to direction that we need to. So
both of us, I would consider us to be attachment-based therapists, and what that means is we operate out of something called attachment theory, and it's a developmental theory, and it's a deep part of who we are. It has a lot to do with how we were treated and raised, our early relationships with our parents and caregivers, and how that really comes into our adult life, and it affects our marriages, it affects our relationship with God, and how we grow in that. So when you understand attachment theory, you can really understand some of why we do what we do. Because a lot of times we have logic about our relationships. We want to act in a certain way or not act in a certain way, and yet we find ourselves going off that road, and just the emotion overrides our logic and what we want to do. And so this is going to explain some of that to you and give you some insight. If you feel like you're struggling in your relationship with God, you don't know how to grow closer to Him, or you don't know why, you just can't break down some of those walls between you and Him, I think this will help you understand. So just a general understanding of attachment, it starts very early, as soon as we're born, how we're cared for as young infants, as toddlers. We make sense of the world by how we're treated. So if our parents are doing a good job and they're meeting all of our needs, and we feel loved and we feel taken care of, we learn to trust the world, we learn to trust other people, we trust them to love us, and therefore we're able to love them. And so that gives us a secure attachment. And that can go on into life, and people tend to have stronger relationships, more stable relationships. They have less mental illness, less depression, less anxiety, that kind of thing. And so that's where, if you're not in this category, that's our goal. Because the good news is, if you don't find yourself in this category now, or if you had a difficult upbringing, you can move into the secure attachment category. And so you'll see on the screen, this is attachment and feelings. When you have been well taken care of consistently, emotionally, you have a full range of emotions, in the sense of you're able to handle feeling all of your emotions, even the ones we don't want to feel. You have some control over those emotions. You're able to soothe yourself, in a sense of, if you feel bad, if you're upset, you know what it takes to help you get past that. You're able to talk to the people that you love about your feelings, and you can deal with their feelings as well. That's a big part of relationships. Not only just being able to deal with our feelings, but the feelings of our spouse, our children, the people around us. And a big one is, you're capable of accurate empathy. And what that means is, you have a sense of what another person is going through. And that is the building block of good social skills, good relationships. If you are trying to tune in to what the other person is feeling, it's going to change how you treat them, how you act. And, you know, that's something that's very biblical. We are encouraged to try to understand what another person is going through, and give them grace, forgiveness. So empathy can lead to all of those things that help break down walls in relationships, help bond us stronger to the people that we love. And so that's the gold standard. That's what we want, secure attachment.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, not everybody grows up in a consistently nurturing environment. And Diane and I teach about this a lot, and we always give a really strong caveat here that we're not talking about your parents not loving you. Mm-hmm. You really need to understand us from that perspective. If you find yourself in one of these other insecure attachment categories, and there's been problems and your relationships seem hard because of them, we're not saying that, you know, where this started early in your life is because your parents didn't love you, because we can really love our children, and yet we can still pass on these insecure attachment patterns. Mainly if we don't understand the attachment pattern itself and we don't know how to intentionally change it. So the good news there is if you are listening to this and you're taking this in and trying to understand it, you can, you know, really consciously work on this and learn to grow and trust and heal and, you know, change this. But some of what you may hear in these other categories may lead you to a point where you might need to do some forgiveness work with your parents, or with whoever your primary caregiver was. And that doesn't even mean that it's something you would tell them. And it may not even be something that they did intentionally, but you may still need to do some forgiveness work because inadvertently their actions or their lack of actions have hurt you in certain ways. So if a parent is very consistently rejecting their child in certain ways, or if they're very consistently overwhelming to their child, then an avoidant attachment can form. And if a child isn't treated in a secure way, they're going to go into crisis mode, fight or flight. Okay, so this is the flight mode. This is how they survive. So a child's goal is to stay as close to their mom as they can. So if mom is rejecting when they have needs, when they cry, when they're upset, or when they're angry, and she doesn't want them to come near her, then they learn to shut that down. So they shut those emotions down. And you even see when they've done studies with young children that have this flight avoidant attachment style, the mom will come into the room and, you know, they've wired them up and their heart's racing, but you just can't tell.
Right.
There's just no emotion on their face.
Oftentimes that attachment style actually goes numb before they experience an emotion.
Right.
So that is, you know, the consequence of not being responded to when they needed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like we said, this doesn't mean mom or dad or whoever didn't love you, but they couldn't handle your needs. They couldn't handle the expression of your needs.
I would even say with that attachment style, you might have had two parents, well-meaning parents that were just working full-time.
Yeah.
They just weren't, someone just wasn't capable to be there for you when you needed it.
Right.
So
if you look at the slide that we have up for avoidant attachment, emotionally, so we're putting up the attachment and feelings because I want you to be able to see where you fall in this, okay? So avoidant attachment, emotionally, you feel pretty restricted. You don't spend a lot of time thinking about or assessing how you're feeling. You spend more time avoiding it, pushing it away. There's too much control of your emotions. So sometimes even when you want to feel, you can't get to the emotions because you operate at a shutdown to some extent most of the time. In this category, when it comes to self-soothing, people tend to use things to self-soothe. You see addictions can crop up in this category. A lot of times someone may become a workaholic. They may become very engrossed in their hobbies, that kind of thing. You see a lot of perfectionism in this category. And so you see a lot of people really excel in this category. They can shut down their feelings and they can just get lost in what they're doing or their career or their goals. But they do see their relationships suffer. There's always space in their relationships, and the people they love are trying to get close. And sometimes even if they want to let them get close, they don't know how. So they really keep those feelings at a distance. They don't share their feelings. And so they tend to have restricted empathy. Because they don't spend a lot of time thinking about their own emotions, they're not really able or willing to think about the other person's emotions because it's just scary to go there for them.
I have a little analogy when I'm talking to couples about this attachment style. I often say, look, when you're 2 or 3 years old and you go to a parent, you need nurturing, normal, childhood nurturing, and for whatever reason it's not available. Right? That nurturing hole is still out there, but I have learned how to just take care of it myself.
Well, I do quite a bit of counseling with entire families where I have the father, the mother, or step-parents, and the children. And I look real closely when I'm questioning the children. And when I give a specific question to one of them, I look at them real close, and if they keep looking at mama or daddy, then I know what they're doing is looking to them for assurance that what they say is okay.
Right.
And so that's why many times I will question them, and then I will meet them without their parents. And sometimes the answers is totally different than when the parents were sitting there.
Absolutely.
Because of just this, they give in to that look from the parents, and that motivates their answer.
Because the goal is to stay as close to the parents as possible. And so they're going to shut down anything else that might, damage that or.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good
that
point.
probably is leading into your next
attachment
style.
Now, I know we've launched right into this, and it's theory, and I hope that we're keeping you with us. But try to get this down so that when we get to the part about your relationship with God, you can really apply it. And then when Diane talks about marriage, I think you'll really find it helpful. So hang on with us through the theory. So then the other main insecure attachment is called ambivalent attachment. You also hear it called anxious attachment. And this is when a person grows up with an inconsistent caregiver. And what I mean by that is sometimes they're able to meet the needs and sometimes they're not. And that could be for a ton of different reasons. It could be because they have 3 other kids and they just can't always get there. It could be because emotionally sometimes mom can't handle it and sometimes she feels stronger. And that's how she was parented, and we do tend to pass that along unless, like I said, you intentionally change it. So we said that avoidant attachment was flight mode, so this is fight mode. Because sometimes mom will come meet those needs, a child is going to kick into fight mode. They're going to get louder. So while the avoidant child shuts it down and you don't hear anything out of them, when it comes to their needs, the ambivalent child is going to crank it up. They're going to cry more. They're going to get louder. You see a lot of separation anxiety in this category. And so remember, the whole point is to stay close to mom. And so this gets mom there when they get louder. And so there's a full range of emotion, but there's not a lot of control over that emotion. and they have a really hard time self-soothing because it's intuitive for them to crank it up and have their needs out there because they feel like that's the only way I can get the nurturing that I need. So if I were to go self-soothe and deal with it myself, then I'm never going to get the love that I need. So that's counterintuitive to self-soothe. Right. And a lot of times people in this category will share their feelings too much for that same reason. You know, they're later on in adult relationships, sharing their feelings too much is the equivalent of the child that cries louder and louder and louder for mom to eventually come. Mm-hmm. And as Diane's going to tell you, people in the ambivalent attachment category tend to marry people in the avoidant attachment category.
A huge percentage of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's actually a good, what I would say, God reason, you know, for that to happen. They do the Jerry Maguire. They complete each other. They really do. Right. And God wants that. He needs us to be in relationship and dependent in that way. It's just kind of hard.
It's tough. It's tough because fight and flight working together is a chase cycle, as she's going to explain.
So this is a little bit about what you were talking about, Lalon, where, you know, my emotional well-being, I'm going to kind of watch to see if I'm okay by the expression that you have.
Right.
Yeah.
Because children, two things with small children, adolescent children, whenever something happens, they're going to take full responsibility. Right. I did it. I caused it. And that's the reason many children have this complex. Right. Because if mom and dad separates, somehow a small child, under 9 especially, is going to feel, I caused this. I have a responsibility. So parental approval is almost mandatory to a child. If they don't have that, they're going to develop all these negative.
Well, I agree. All of them would want that approval, but, you know, like Angel said, one of them is going to kind of close down. They want that approval, but they're just going to kind of shut down and stand the distance. And the child that you were talking about is going to pull and see if I'm okay, you know.
So remember, we're talking fight or flight mode. So in flight mode, the avoidant attachment, there's a deep fear of intimacy. That's just really scary to think of letting a person in, because there's a belief that the person can't love me the way I need to be loved. Right. In fight mode, in the ambivalent attachment, there's a very deep fear of rejection, and that fear of rejection tends to be easy to see right on the surface. And it guides a lot of what they say and what they do. This final category, you probably saw when we put the slide up, disorganized attachment. It's actually a blend of fight and flight. So you can have fight, flight, or freeze, and that's just a very overwhelmed. It's a abuse-based attachment when the caregiver is abusive. And a child has to stay close to and cling to the person that hurts them. And so a disorganized attachment forms, which you're going to see the fear of rejection and the fear of intimacy together at the same time. Right. And so really this is how you understand domestic violence, that you can see in adults when someone continues to stay with a spouse that abuses them, or they keep going back to them. I would guarantee you they have, from early in their life, this disorganized attachment where they are wired to cling to the person that hurts them. So even though logically they don't want to be hurt and they don't want to be in that bad place, you want to understand these attachment emotions and drives are deep. Yeah. They're mostly unconscious. And they will override what we know, what we think, what we want logically, because our deepest need that God put in us when He created us was for a relationship, relationship with Him and relationship with each other. we cannot survive without relationship. And so that's why it's so important to understand what kind of map you have relationally.
Yes.
And if you're ending up in the wrong destination over and over, you need a new map. Okay? So if you're in the fight, flight, or freeze map, we want you in the secure map.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so that's the goal. But what we want to do today is we want to bring this into your relationship with God, because the way that you attach to the people in your life, you're going to find is very similar to how you view God,
Yes.
how you relate to Him, how you try to draw close to Him or not. Okay? You're going to really see a lot of parallels between your parent attachment and your God attachment. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, if you have a really good, secure attachment to God, then you're going to feel very assured in your salvation. You're not going to question it. You're not going to feel the need to pray that prayer over and over. You're just going to feel solid in it. You're going to feel like you can explore maybe any doubts that come up. You can explore your theology. You can explore the calling God has on your life. You feel like God is going to be there if you draw near to Him. And you're really able to take in an understanding of who He is, for the love and the grace and the forgiveness that He embodies. You don't have to fight to really get there and understand that and believe it. Yeah. And so
I always like the image of, even if all of your other attachments weren't what you wanted or hoped for or in life, God is the ultimate secure attachment. Mm-hmm. You can always watch yourself holding His hand, even if the rest of this, you know, let you down in ways in your life.
Right.
Thank you so much. And this has been such a enlightening part. And you know, I was thinking just a few moments ago, we can understand why, and I know this can be attributed to several different areas, but Jesus loved little children.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And several times when the disciples wanted to move the children out the way, He said, "Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Let them come to me."
Yeah.
And then again He said, "It's better that a millstone be put around your neck and you dropped into the deepest part of the ocean than to offend one of my little children."
Yeah.
Now you might say that's one of His grown-up children too, but I believe He was talking about small children.
Yeah.
Because listen, if you have children, they're a gift from God. And the way that they are trained is so important. But join us next week. We're going to be talking about marriage with our same guest. But thank you for tuning in tonight, and we'll look for you again next Wednesday night when we talk about marriages. God bless you.